The bus was full of fifth graders on a field trip.
I have a full school bus and I have victims on the ground.
The deadly collision happened with a dump truck. We are on the scene with the latest on the injuries and the investigation. Also tonight, we're in Hawaii as Kilauea shoots ash nearly 6 miles into the sky.
What looks like fog is a giant cloud of sulfur dioxide.
An Ebola outbreak spreads, why it's being called a major game changer. President Trump says Kim Jong-un has a choice, a nuclear deal that would make him happy, or what he calls the Gaddafi model.
We went in and decimated him.
A secret TSA watch list. It is no longer a secret. An arrest after the deadly explosion at a California day spa. Rehearsals for the royal wedding. The bride confirms her father will not attend. And what has 8 legs and 1 poignant tail?
They sleep together, they eat together, they lay together, they walk together. I mean, they do everything together.
Stay tuned.
This is the CBS Evening News with Jeff Glor.
This is our Western edition. Good evening. We're going to begin with a deadly collision involving a school bus. The bus filled with children on a field trip collided with a dump truck in northern New Jersey, about 45 miles west of New York City. A student and a teacher were killed. Many others are hurt. Michelle Miller is on the scene.
I'm going to need about 20 ambulances. I have a full school bus and I have victims on the ground.
Calls flooded 911 after a school bus carrying 38 fifth graders from a New Jersey middle school collided with a dump truck.
I got one child shallow breathing with a head injury.
Law enforcement says the school bus driver caused the crash after making an illegal U-turn when he missed an exit. The collision was so violent that the body of the bus was nearly sheared off the undercarriage, the front end crushed as it careened on its side atop the highway. The red dump truck involved in the crash stopped nearby. Mount Olive Mayor Robert Greenbaum.
It doesn't take long to look at this accident scene to understand how horrific it was.
Students were on a class trip with teachers and several parents. The 2 people reported dead were a student and teacher Jennifer Williamson. Another child is in a medically induced coma. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy.
Some patients are in critical condition and currently undergoing surgery, so please keep everybody in your prayers.
Canine units searched the nearby woods after there were reports of people being ejected from the bus. Officials say 43 victims were taken to area hospitals.
I heard 2 boys were severely injured and my best friend was on that bus and I was so scared.
The school bus was one of 3 buses of fifth graders on the school trip. The other 2 were not involved in the crash.
This is a devastation right now for our community, for the families involved, for the Eastbrook Middle School, for the children.
Paramus police confirmed to us that this bus did have seatbelts, that all on board should have been wearing them. And in fact, people were actually rescued while they were still strapped in. Jeff, as for the driver of that dump truck, he was taken to the hospital and treated.
So difficult for parents or anyone to see these pictures today. Michelle, thank you. Thousands on Hawaii's Big Island were warned today to shelter in place after the Kilauea volcano erupted. It launched a cloud of ash nearly 6 miles into the sky that rained down on a nearby village. David Begno is in the eruption zone tonight. David?
Jeff, as we come on the air tonight, the hazard is sulfur dioxide gas. In fact, some of the first responders have been pulled back from their positions and brought to this place where we are because this is a safe spot. Now, behind me is an evacuation zone. We're not allowed in, but we can actually hear the booms coming from the cracks in the earth. Look, the day started with a big alert. Went out on cell phone, television, radio. A giant ash plume rose from the volcano, 30,000 feet in the air. The biggest plume so far, but scientists say it was short-lived and didn't have much of a hazardous effect. The National Guard took us into an evacuation zone. We were wearing our gas masks in a safe place, but they wanted us to get really close to one of those fissures to be able to properly document how active the roughly 20 fissures still are nearly 2 weeks after this all started. We also went up in a helicopter and we flew around the Pu'o'o crater, and it is impressive. That crater is where the floor fell out, the lava drained out, and then lava started popping up at various places in the earth as far as 15 miles from the volcano. In fact, when we flew over the evacuation zone of Leilani Estates, we could see the lava bubbling at the surface, but we also saw brown vegetation, a sign that the sulfur dioxide is killing the vegetation. Jeff, the bottom line, experts say, don't be afraid of the ash, be afraid of that sulfur dioxide gas.
David Begnaud watching the volcano on the Big Island. David, thanks. Today, the president called it disgusting, illegal, and unwarranted. He was talking about the Russia investigation, now exactly 1 year old, after Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel May 17, 2017. More on today's developments from Paula Reed.
Early this morning, President Trump took to Twitter, lashing out against the special counsel. Congratulations, America. We are now into the second year of the greatest witch hunt in American history, and there is still no collusion, no obstruction.
Somebody has to defend the president.
The president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, appeared on Fox News to condemn the investigation.
But it's a damn witch hunt.
Over the last year, the special counsel has filed more than 100 charges against 19 people and 3 companies, with crimes ranging from lying to conspiracy against the U.S. 5 of the people charged have pleaded guilty and are actively cooperating with investigators.
They're going at a very quick pace.
Kim Whaley, a former federal prosecutor who is an independent counselor during the Whitewater investigation, says the Mueller investigation is moving quickly and yielding results.
We don't know how many witnesses have been talked to, but we have to assume a lot more than have been made public because this investigation keeps things very quiet.
A report filed in December indicates that Mueller's team spent $3.2 million in its first 5 months of work. Another budget report is due next month.
Selling America out to the Russians.
The first person facing trial is former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, who is charged in 2 separate cases. Those trials will begin later this year. The Office of Special Counsel will continue to work until every court appeal has been exhausted.
Paula continues her reporting on this. So, Paula, what happens next here?
Well, Jeff, if it's one thing I've learned over the last year covering this case is that the only person who knows what's going to happen next is special counsel Robert Mueller. But in my reporting, I have come across some leads to answer that question. First of all, we know the president's lawyers continue to negotiate a possible interview between the president and special counsel. And we've also learned the special counsel is once again calling witnesses before the grand jury. And that suggests we could see another indictment soon. But ultimately, we just do not know how long this will last.
Paula's at the White House for us. Paula, thanks. The president said today his June 12th meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un is on. He also gave Kim a choice: sign a nuclear deal and be rewarded with protections, or possibly end up like Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, who was overthrown and killed. Here's Margaret Brennan.
I think Kim Jong-un is going to be very, very happy. I really believe he's going to be very happy.
In a remarkable public guarantee, President Trump promised Kim Jong-un that the U.S. will not force him out of power if he abandons his nuclear weapons.
And he'll get protections that will be very strong.
The president's remarks responded to North Korea's threat to call off the upcoming summit after what it called, quote, awfully sinister remarks made by National Security Advisor John Bolton when he compared Trump's plan to how Bush 43 disarmed Libya.
That's right. I think we're looking at the Libya model of 2003, 2004. We're also looking at what North Korea itself has committed to previously.
But Libya's government also collapsed 8 years later, and leader Muammar Gaddafi was overthrown. Today, President Trump said that was not his intent.
The Libyan model isn't a model that we have at all when we're thinking of North Korea. This would be with Kim Jong-un, something where he'd be there.
But warned Kim Jong-un that could still happen if he refuses to disarm.
That model with Gaddafi, that was a total decimation. We went in there to beat him. Now, that model would take place if we don't make a deal, most likely.
Margaret's here with us now. So, Margaret, what does North Korea have to do now to show good faith?
Well, the administration says it wants to see North Korea take concrete steps, such as letting in weapons inspectors, shipping out its missiles, and dismantling its infrastructure. Those are the type of actions that couldn't be quickly reversed if North Korea breaks its end of the deal. But North Korea remains skeptical of U.S. intentions and surprisingly has already rejected the Trump administration's offer to invest in their poverty-stricken country. Instead, they're saying they simply want sanctions relief. Jeff?
Margaret, thank you. For the first time, a woman will head the Central Intelligence Agency. The Senate today confirmed Gina Haspel, 54 to 45. 6 Democrats joined most Republicans in support. Haspel's past came under scrutiny at her confirmation hearing as CIA station chief in Thailand. She managed a secret prison where 2 al-Qaeda suspects were waterboarded. Haspel assured senators she will not allow the CIA to engage in torture. There is a major development in the investigation of the bomb blast that killed the owner of a day spa in Southern California. The FBI arrested the victim's ex-boyfriend after making an important discovery at his house. Jamie Yukas picks up the story.
Investigators continue to pour through the remains of a spa 3 days after a massive explosion that killed spa owner Ildiko Krasniak and injured 3 others. Federal agents say they found evidence of bomb fragments.
We've sent them back to the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, in order to have trace evidence and other tests done right away.
The FBI also served search warrants at the home of 59-year-old Stephen Beal, where, according to court documents, they found 2 completed improvised explosive devices, 3 firearms, and other chemicals used to make bombs. In federal court today, Beal faced charges for possession of an unregistered destructive device. Law enforcement officials tell CBS News that Beal had a personal relationship with Krasniak, and they stress that while he has a connection to the victim, he is not being connected to the crime at this point. One neighbor claims Beal is a rocket enthusiast.
We've seen him make rockets, and we know he used to go out to the desert to fire off the rockets.
The blast took place next to a daycare center, leaving these haunting images of 100 preschoolers being evacuated, some in cribs, others holding hands with first responders. Initial reports that it may have been a gas leak have now led to a more sobering conclusion, that the explosion, which killed Ildiko Krasniak, was intentional.
The judge did not set bail today. And Jeff, even though there isn't a connection to the bombing, the current charge carries a maximum prison sentence of 10 years. Beal will be back here in court on Monday.
Jamie's in Santa Ana for us. Jamie, thanks. Health experts warned today that a new case of Ebola in Central Africa is what they call a, quote, major game changer. 2 years after the worst Ebola epidemic in history finally subsided, the virus is surging again. A new deadly outbreak in the Congo has now spread to a city. Here's Dr. John Lapook.
The report of an Ebola case in the city of Mbandaka means the virus has arrived in a densely populated area. Until today, the 44 possible cases and 23 deaths have been limited to the remote rural area of Bikoro. But Bikoro lies near the heavily traveled Congo River, which connects travelers not only to Mbandaka to the north, but to the capital city of Kinshasa, with more than 9 million residents to the south. The fear is, if the virus reaches large urban areas, it could spread quickly, with devastating consequences. In 2014, a major Ebola epidemic in West Africa killed more than 11,000. Since then, an experimental vaccine has been developed, and 4,000 doses have arrived in the Congo, with thousands more to follow. The plan is to immunize the more than 500 contacts of infected people in an attempt to stop the virus from spreading.
This time, health officials are all over this, and they're coordinating their efforts. And that includes using this vaccine. Now, this vaccine was experimental, but it was used successfully in 2016 during that outbreak that was in Guinea. They're doing everything they can this time to avoid making the mistakes of 2014.
Yeah, I know there was an underreaction last time, John, so they're trying to prepare as best they can this time. Thank you very much. A report today on America's birth rate says it is going down, and that'll eventually lead to a smaller pool of young workers paying into Social Security and Medicare. The government says births fell 2% last year to under 3.9 million, the fewest in 30 years. Birth rates declined for every age group except women in their early 40s. The royal wedding excitement is on the boil. The bride and groom had a rehearsal today. The mother of the bride had tea with her royal in-laws, and the question of whether the father of the bride will attend was finally settled. Here's Roxana Saberi.
As Prince Harry and Meghan Markle rode to Windsor Castle for a dress rehearsal, the bride was still smiling despite a tumultuous week. This morning, she confirmed her father won't walk her down the aisle, saying in a statement she hopes he can be given the space he needs to focus on his health. Thomas Markle Sr. is reportedly recovering from surgery after a heart attack. Earlier in the week, he was caught up in controversy over these photographs, reportedly telling TMZ he staged them to show himself in a positive light. Royal correspondent Roy Anika says the run-up to royal weddings is usually much smoother. What have you heard about how Meghan is feeling considering this change of plans?
We've been told by Kensington Palace that, far from being absolutely debilitated by what's been going on, she is trying to carry on as normal.
Other wedding plans appear to be on track. Troops are rehearsing. Some will escort the newlyweds on a carriage ride through Windsor on Saturday, when these streets will be filled with even more fans.
I'm a crazy American.
Nancy McCoy flew in early from California, sleeping on the sidewalk to save a spot, just like she has for the Queen's past 2 Jubilees.
Why was it so important for you to come out here so early? I know you have to come early to get a good place, and I wanted to be right where the carriage comes down.
Today, Prince Harry and Meghan met with the Queen here at Windsor Castle. Meghan's mother has arrived in England and is expected to accompany her daughter to the wedding on Saturday. Jeff?
Roxana, thank you. CBS News live coverage of the royal wedding begins Saturday at 4 a.m. Eastern Time, 3 Central. That is 1 a.m. in the West. Saturday night, Gayle King of CBS This Morning will host a 2-hour primetime special, Royal Romance, right here on CBS. Coming up next on the CBS Evening News, why attacks like this could land you on a secret TSA watch list. There's been a spike in attacks like this one on TSA officers, so the agency began compiling a secret watch list of dangerous passengers. Well, now the secret is out, and Jerika Duncan is here with more on this. Jerika?
That's right. Well, this video really was used to showcase what TSA agents sometimes have to deal with. Today, for the first time, what's called a 95 list of unruly passengers was discussed at a House Homeland Security subcommittee hearing. CBS News has learned that since February, 2 to 3 dozen people have been added. This generally involves cases in which there is assaultive behavior or someone tries to circumvent security screenings. Now, there's a chance you may not even know you've been added to this list. Being placed on this list does not mean that you'll be prevented from boarding a plane or that you'll have to go through additional security. TSA officials say it's simply about awareness that someone going through the checkpoint has demonstrated concerning, assaulting behavior in the past. One congressman, though, expressed concern about the civil liberty implications. The TSA, though, says it will follow up with details.
It might stand to reason if someone was violent against a TSA officer. But so what else do we know about this? How many people total do we think are on this?
So 50 people are currently on this list, according to the TSA. And we also know that the agency reported that, get this, 34 assaults on TSA agents last year.
Jerika Duncan with the latest on this tonight. Jerika, thanks. It started with an urgent announcement from the pilot. Is there a doctor on board? There was. Dr. Jerome Adams, the Surgeon General, attended to a passenger who'd passed out yesterday as their Delta jet waited to take off from Fort Lauderdale to Atlanta. Dr. Adams later tweeted, "Patient doing well, and like a good public health service doctor, I was glad to be able to assist." Up next, 2 best friends in need of one good home.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by Trivago.com, the hotel search. Hotel Trivago.
We end tonight with a tale that has the makings of a storybook. All that's missing is someone to write a happily ever after ending. Here's Chip Reed with the Once Upon a Time beginning.
Come on, OJ. Meet the odd couple of the Richmond, Virginia animal shelter. A 12-year-old dachshund named OJ and a 90-pound pit bull named Blue Dozer, who kind of resembles a bulldozer.
So this one, OJ, is basically blind.
Yes.
And this is kind of OJ's guide dog.
Exactly.
OJ has a habit of running into things. Oops.
They sleep together, they eat together, they lay together, they walk together. I mean, they do everything together.
Christy Chips Peters is director of Richmond Animal Care and Control.
Only loves him. Like with a vengeance, he loves him. And no harm will ever come to this dog.
As long as this guy's around.
Yes.
He's his protector.
He's his protector.
So OJ follows Dozer just about everywhere. And it's a good thing they have each other, because lately life hasn't been easy. Last month, their owner became homeless and brought them to the shelter in desperation.
And her plea to us was, as we're all like crying behind the front desk, if they could please stay together. We put them on Facebook. We got a lot of coverage because they're ridiculously cute.
In fact, they went viral. They were adopted by someone who promised to keep them together. But just a few days later, OJ was found abandoned and alone. Peters was distraught.
We promised, you know, that we would keep them together and that their life would be great.
So she brought OJ back to the shelter and convinced the adopter to return Dozer. Now reunited, they're living in her office while waiting for a new home. Dozens of potential owners have applied, but Peters wants to make sure they'll never be separated again.
We really just want it to be about the love of the dogs.
And the love of two dogs for each other. Chip Reed, CBS News, Richmond, Virginia.
We will follow this. Would be great to see them get a good new home. That is the CBS Evening News tonight, but CBS News streams round the clock on CBSN. There's Elaine Quijano. I'm Jeff Glor. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.